Hello Whiskey Crooners, this is WhiskyWhistle and I'm your host Mark. Today in Whiskey Review number 76 we are going to India to review, well we're not going to India, our taste buds are going to India to review Amrut single malt whiskey from India, Indian single malt. And here it is, this is their basic standard single malt. It is 46% ABV and it's unchill filtered. And also natural color. And you can find that information on the back of the label. So we'll look at that in a minute. Let's get it poured together, shall we? Here it is. Whoa, spilt some there. That's got a nice, pretty much standard gold color. Yep, a very nice yellow gold. And well, I don't know if it's because I spilled a little bit, but boy, the room is filled with a malty, delicious whiskey scent. That's a real, actually, quite a tight cork, which is nice. And well, it comes with the, the old-fashioned sort of customs, what do you call it? Sticker on the cap, on the cork. So that kind of gives it sort of an old-fashioned feel. And the label, really does remind me of some of the typical traditional clothing from India. So they've done a good job of putting a bit of culture in there. And you see the mountain in the picture there on the canister and also on the label. Quite interesting. And well, what does this say here? This says bottle number 67, April 2014. Don't know exactly what that's telling us, but anyway, I'm going to let that sit for a little while to breathe, get a little bit of air into the glass. And I'm not going to read through the can. It's quite long-winded. The front, though, let's go through that one. Product of India, as you would expect. Amrut Indian single malt whiskey. Aged in oak barrels, thank goodness. I mean, it could be, no, you know what, I think it's about time that other woods be used for aging whiskey and that be allowed. I believe in some countries it may be okay to age whiskey in things other than oak. However, in major producing countries like Scotland and USA and Canada, it's stipulated that it needs to be oak barrels. At least for the primary maturation. Aged in oak barrels, distillers for over 3 generations. Made from selected Indian barley matured by waters flowing from the Great Himalayas. Distilled, matured, and bottled by Amrut Distilleries Limited, N.R. Jagdale Group, in Bangalore, India. Amrut. Amrut apparently means elixir of the gods, or something very similar to the meaning of whiskey, or whiskey biha, or aquavite, and so on. So that's quite interesting. Now, while we're letting that sit for just a little while, we'll go through a very brief bit of history of this great distillery. I've got it right here behind the camera. All right, so it was founded in 1947, so not that long ago. However, given that that's from India, that is ages ago. It started out as Amrut Laboratories because it was really difficult to get licensing to distill alcohol for consumption. So Amrut Laboratories, 1947, and then as licensing eased, 1948, the founder created Amrut Distilleries Limited, and the father's name was the founder's name Radhakrishna Jagdale. So he was the founder, and it started out with actually importing foreign liquor and then I guess blending it or bottling it in India for the Indian market, and otherwise known as IMFL, Indian Made Foreign Liquor. And then after a short period of time, they started making their own. They started with brandy. And the brandy was sold through the country's state-run kind of general stores, and also as a ration for the army. So quite an interesting beginning. The son, N.R. Jagdale, he joined in 1972, and untimely his father passed away, the founder, in 1976. So JR took over, and they had some rough times, but in the recent, I guess, let's say 25 years, they've had quite a good run, and I think they're into other sectors, not just drinks, and it's quite a big group now called the NR Jagdale Group, with Amrut being one division of it. So interesting. Single malt didn't come about with this company until sometime around 1982, so fairly recent. And initially this was to be simply a flavoring agent added to slightly more neutral grain spirits to make a blended whiskey for the Indian market. And they initially aged it for about a year or 18 months, and then I guess at some point the grandson, who was attending an MBA program in England, they decided that they would try to release a single malt from the distillery, given that he was there. And what they wanted was, they thought if they could succeed in England, then they could succeed anywhere. And they did succeed quite handily. So hats off to the Jagdale Group and the family. Impressive story. 2004, the brand hit Europe. 2010, USA. And it's pretty much available over most of the world, either by direct import or by perhaps secondary import. I found this bottle here in Korea at the Namdaemun underground market, and again, underground simply meaning that it actually happens to be underground. And if you're wondering where that is, you can simply send me a message and I'll let you know. There's also a video that will show you how to get there. So that's the story. They have won a host of awards. They have been named third best single malt whiskey of the year by a famous whiskey reviewer who will go unnamed today, and continue to win awards for their whiskeys. They have done peated styles. They've done some very interesting maturation experiments, including having one on a ship and sending it around the world, I believe. So that's quite cool. So I've got it poured. Don't need to touch this anymore, do I? No. Yeah, quite classy label there. And we'll get into the nosing now. And before that, there will be a short advertisement, and that'll happen right here. Welcome back. Let's get into the nose. Nose meaning the smell. It's quite fruity. Also lovely oak tones and vanillas, tropical spices. Papaya comes to mind. And it's quite potent. As I mentioned, it really does fill the room with this wonderful fragrance. So that's nice. Now, what are my notes here? This was from last week. I meant to record this a week ago, practically. But, my awakenedness got the better of me, or lack thereof. So, as I mentioned, papaya. Also coconut shells. dark chocolate cherry conserves, cherry jam if you like. And with time, which we may not have here on camera, you will get vanilla pods, candy floss, demerara sugar, so the very dark brown sugar, and leather work gloves. Yeah, I'm starting to get the vanilla coming through. So take your time with this one and you will not be disappointed. Okay, what about the palate? How about the taste? The taste is referred to as the palate for any sort of tasting of liquor or wine or beer. So let's taste that together. As I mentioned, it's 46% and unchill filtered, so it really does coat the glass well. And I should say that one thing that the people at Amrut really want to educate people on is that what the situation there with their maturation is very different from other parts of the world. They lose apparently 10% or more of their new make whiskey as it's aging in the barrels, 10% per year because of the heat in India. And apparently this hot weather accelerates the maturation process. And so what they feel is that 1 year in India is about 3 years in Scotland. So I'm guessing from the way my palate talks to me about this whiskey, it seems to have the maturation of, let's say, around a 12 to 14-year-old whiskey. So divide that by 3, and we're talking 4 to 5 years of maturation in the barrel in India. So it's NAS, and I can understand why, because it's different. You put 4 or 5 years on a label and you're not going to turn too many heads, let's say. But, if people know this, maybe what the company can do is to put that information with maybe a little bit of evidence. That can be done simply through a chemical, what's it called? Oh shoot. Oh goodness. Oh goodness. They can use spectrography. Gosh. Anyway, they can use science. They can use science to look at what has happened to the whiskey after Indian maturation and compare that with, anything from Scotland, and put that on their website. That way, people like me, people like you who watch whiskey reviews on YouTube, can find the information and then make a positive decision to buy the whiskey rather than say, oh, it's no age stated whiskey, I'm not buying that. You'd be doing yourself a disservice by not trying Amrut. There comes the leather work gloves. Now, I find some similarities in the nose with Chivas Regal. So interesting. Now that's a blend. So it's different. We're comparing apples and oranges, but something in the nose there, and that may be from Strathisla or Longmorn, one of the single malts that goes into Chivas. Anyway, on to the taste. Cheers, everyone. Really coats the mouth nicely. tropical fruit salad with spiced, kind of like a spiced, let's say, heavy cream thrown on top. And yeah, well, that's what I wrote there. Tropical fruit salad, jasmine tea. Oh, here I wrote, it tastes like 18-year-old. Maybe that was a bit overzealous. It does taste well over 12. Baking spices. Ripe, soft persimmon. Dried candied fruits. Cardamom. Chinese 5-spice. And it's sweet and then develops quite dry. We'll try that one more time for the finish. Ooh, dry. Flavor-wise, dried pineapple, vanilla and orange candy, dragon fruit and mango salad. That's something that's available here at a restaurant in Seoul called Ashley's. Agave syrup also. Quite a long finish, especially, you know, most people would consider this as a young whiskey. But, you know, again, they're comparing apples and oranges, so we have to sort of rate it for what it is, and that is an Indian single malt. It's not a Scotch single malt. It's not a Canadian or an American or a Japanese single malt. Okay, we'll add a bit of water in there. How much have I got? That's maybe 30, maybe a little bit less. I think I'm going to be fairly not conservative, liberal. Fairly liberal with the water. There we go. Stroll around the glass, no shaky shakies. Oh, Ralphie, we love you. No, I can't do a Scottish accent. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, that's okay. You can simply investigate. Give that another minute. It really does have a very lovely bouquet. And if I were to choose another distillery that I thought had a similar flavor profile to this, it would be one that is also in Asia, from Taiwan. And I won't mention it, but you'll know what I'm talking about if you are into world whiskeys. So there's something different about, I don't know if it's the air this side of the world or whatever it is, but there's something that seems to have an effect on flavor down in this part of the world. And of course, I'm here in Seoul, South Korea, if you didn't know that. I'm Canadian, I live here. I think I say that every review, hoping that there'll be lots of new viewers watching. And you know, before I carry on with that one, I should really thank all of my new subscribers. It's been a big rush in the last little while, and I owe a large thank you to a certain gentleman in the UK, Joe from Whiskey Wednesday. Thank you so much for the shout out, and here I am returning one for you. Joe has been reviewing whiskeys. He's been in the industry for quite a while. in many different, wearing many different hats, and his reviews every Wednesday on the channel called Whiskey Wednesday on YouTube. So have a look. His reviews are a little shorter than mine, so if you're time poor and you can't seem to watch a whole episode of WhiskyWhistle, then why not give Whiskey Wednesday a try, or watch us both. Okay, so with water, a lot more vanilla, a little bit less of the tropical fruit. And there's still that aged, sort of leathery scent there as well. What did my notes say? I wrote here more leather, and in question marks I put sherry cask, European oak. So yeah, there's something in that oak that adds a spiciness to it that is atypical of a bourbon barrel. And with water, you'll find the cherries and chocolate really begin to assert themselves. So it's getting quite chocolatey. And just remember, that's the smell of chocolate, not the taste. You can really go to town with smelling this one. Okay, we'll taste it. Before that, there'll be one more advertisement right there. Welcome back onto the taste with water. Becomes juicier, a little more succulent. The tropical fruits are all still there, of course. What you do get is more vanilla pods. A jasmine tea sort of note is still there, as are all the spices. And I wrote here more pronounced 5 spice. Although I'm not really noticing more per se at this point, this day. And oddly enough, the finish, slightly drier, slightly more candied, if you can figure out what that means. So, a little more astringency, and yet at the same time, there is a sharper, stronger candy flavor. I am so glad that I bought this, and if you can find that where you are, definitely try it, and invite your whiskey friends over, your malt mates, and don't tell them what it is. Pour a glass for them, and let them guess, and let them guess how old they think it is. Let them guess where they think it's from. And then do the reveal after that and see what they say. I think that could be a lot of fun. Okay, so the WhiskyWhistle whiskey score for Amrut Indian single malt whiskey, 46%, non-chill filtered and natural color, is going to be 90 out of 100. And what I write here, such nice flavors, and it's almost illegible, but watch out Scotch. So watch out Scotch, because Amrut's coming for you, and you better up your game. You better up your wood management, because they're doing something very, very well. Oh, okay, so 90 out of 100, that's the WhiskyWhistle whiskey score for Amrut Indian Single Malt. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can subscribe by pushing the button right down there. And tune in next time because there are more interesting things to come. Thank you.